Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel. And on this channel we'll talk about how to create comics, and I'm sharing everything I've learned and been learning since creating my own comic. I've been doing it for 6+ years and basically I'm doing it now and I'm sharing everything I'm learning. But we also talk a lot about art, how to create art, how to enjoy creating art, and how to do art for money and be a professional artist. If any of this is interesting to you, please make sure to engage with the buttons down below. It really helps the channel and I hope the channel can help you in turn. In this particular video, I wanted to talk to you about the time when I went on hiatus with my comic and almost wasn't drawing, and I wanted to talk and discuss and share my thoughts on, did my skill of drawing go down after me not drawing for 2 years? So let's talk about it. So as I mentioned, usually I relate to this time in my life as hiatus on creating my comic, but I actually was not drawing almost at all. There was a period when I really sold my computer. I only had a really crappy laptop that couldn't handle anything like Photoshop related. It wasn't serious. So it's like in case I really needed to draw, I could, but I technically didn't have a machine to do that. So I wasn't technically even able to draw, and it's been 2 years, maybe 1.5 years. And before that happened, it was like a slow decline in me drawing. And yeah, that happened. And the reason for that was literally just a lot of stuff was happening in my life. Growing pains, early 20s situation. So I guess that was what's happening. And because of this, I figured that, no, I didn't figure, but like it felt like, you know, the real life is like taking so much time. Like my true passion was in a real life, mostly because it was going down the hill in all aspects possible. Yeah, I was kind of like just trying to be adult, learning hard lessons. A lot of the time I was in a very bad mental state and I didn't really want to draw. My real life was causing me so much discomfort and like crappiness, and so many things were happening that I needed to work with, and like literally all the problems in like a lot of areas came up at the same time. So I needed to always have my attention there. I'm able to look at that now and just have humor about this, but it wasn't funny when I was there. It was like so not funny. So actually during this time I stopped drawing slowly but surely, and especially my comic I kind of lost interest in creating not just my comic. Like every time I would draw characters from my story, unless it was like a gig, like here and there I would still get like freelance opportunities that I wouldn't pass on, like never, I would never. Yeah, so it was like a weird time in that sense, and I slowly was losing interest in consistently drawing. Maybe with the comic also was contributing that I didn't figure out how to draw it like faster as I do now, like creating background separately, everything. Maybe that was the reason too, that doing my comic was too much of a chore, considering that like just drawing overall was too much of a chore. Like every time I would open any drawing thing, I would feel as if I can focus because I only can think about all the negative things that are happening in my life. Like the real things that are really like, we have to address them. It's not like just bad mood or something like this. Bad things are actively happening. You have to take active actions to do something. So it's like my mind was always distracted. And also I was feeling that when I was drawing, I kind of missing out on my life because of a lot of toxic stuff that was going on. You know, like how people can, when people demand your attention too hard, you feel like you always have to give attention to certain people in your life or they will just leave. Like a lot of toxicity like that. I didn't know how to do adult life yet, you know, kind of like on that level. I didn't know how to do all the responsible things like earn money, get food, budget, everything, but I didn't know like the social complications of that. I feel like I'm too long on this topic, but let's get to the video. So yeah, I basically stopped drawing and I wasn't drawing for 2 years, 2.5, and then during this time I also was thinking maybe drawing is not my thing, maybe I should do something else. You see how it was bad times? Clearly drawing is my thing. When I eventually decided to get back to drawing, that was gradually related to me kind of those toxic situations getting out of my life, plus me actually figuring out all the, you know, situation that happened in my head after this, like figuring out my own emotions, my own thoughts, getting to a better place mentally. This is where the idea of getting back to drawing started to appear. As I get back to it, the question is, did my skill go down? And the thing is, yeah, to a degree it did, but it's not the way you would expect. First of all, I still would do gigs here and there a little bit, so it's not like I completely didn't touch the pencil, but I didn't touch it seriously. And I also would draw a lot with my pen, and I would create a lot of pen began drawing during this time, usually at work when I was bored and, you know, like, I don't know, I was between the shots, like waiting for some assignment. I would just doodle here and there. But what I definitely noticed is that my drawing style, something definitely happened with the way I paint. My eyes did develop. So it's like in a lot of my videos, I'm talking about the situation where if you're progressing with your art, your eyes are kind of your brain, your mind kind of progressing with understanding of how drawing should be, of how good things look like, your understanding of what good is goes up. So that I still was growing there, but my mind wouldn't connect it with my hands a lot. So I knew how the good things should look like, but my hands was very disconnected with my head and didn't know how to get it right way. Or not even the hands, like even in techniques. I would know how, for example, well-drawn mountain would look like, but I was very rusty on the way, like techniques, how I would start drawing it. Like, do I start from the overall shape, a shade, and then just go into details, or do I do lines and just paint like small sections? Like, you know, like all these small things that when you're drawing every day and drawing constantly, you don't think about it. Like, it's already like executed routines for you. This is kind of what happened. And also what I realized, like as I started drawing, I realized that it's harder for me to figure out how to draw exactly what I want. So this disconnect is like, I want what I want, I know what I want to draw, but I don't quite know how to draw exactly that without like struggling. I would have to, every time I would draw a mountain or something like this, it would be like a process of me kind of thinking a little bit, how do I approach it? End result didn't look worse, but the time spent on this thing, on new paintings done after this break, differ. Like I would spend a long time. I remember before I went on this hiatus, I would draw extremely fast. Like I would draw several paintings per day. I was like super efficient. I drew super fast, and it's just because the connection was so great, and between my brain and my hands, and I would just creating art here and there. It's just I got this, and whatever new ideas I had, like immediately would draw them and immediately would test them, and they immediately would come out easy and nice. And now it took time to get back in. And I remember the first drawing I actually did for my comic, before actually getting back to my comic, it was black and white lines, and I had to take this pressure off myself to draw something really good right away, because I knew that I'm just starting. I understood like I'm in the fragile state, like I'm just getting back. So I started drawing with lines, because lines, they just took a little bit less time and less things you have to think about, like no colors, no shading, whatever, just outline lines. And I just drew some highlights from my comic, the story of one particular character, and you know, kind of like drew this strip. And the thing is, that helped. That kind of started building this connection between my hands and my brain, and this correspondence, this neurological pathways, I don't know what it is, and that helped. Another thing that I definitely noticed, that my style, how do I explain that? So there is a noticeable trajectory of improvement that I've been on before I had the break. So I could see how before I took the break, I was really realizing how to paint with colors, which means I would paint without lines. I would just create, like paint with color, like do like a solid color brown, and there's like painting and shaving the solid color with background color, and then slowly adding more colors, and like creating, like drawing with colors only. That's kind of how I was drawing back then, and I definitely noticed that I definitely was on this trajectory on improving this. That was a trajectory I was going for, and my style, if I would continue drawing and practicing, would evolve into something connected to this technique. But then I took a break. It kind of dispositioned, throw off the track this path, and I was on another path of what I wanted to do with my style, because as I got back, I realized, okay, I was starting completely afresh. So I was like, okay, if I want to draw my comic, I feel like drawing my comic, this particular drawing with colors type of technique, is not the most practical way if I want to get my pages out faster, because that way is more unstable, so it's harder to predict the result that you're gonna have. It's cool for standalone drawings, but it's not the best for the comic. And then I also started with lines, and I also started with lines when I was getting back, and as I was working on those lines, I really liked the process, and I also thought, well, okay, that's pretty fast. Maybe I should redo my whole comic and get back to lines with my comic, to get it done. It was like thought was coming from the idea because I was just starting. I wasn't sure if I can commit again to drawing this much yet. Eventually I dismissed this idea entirely, but I was playing a lot with the idea, okay, maybe I should make my comic black and white, maybe I should make my comic with lines. I was playing around with this idea, but as I was practicing with lines, I realized, okay, what about if I combine like drawing with lines with, you know, that type of trajectory that I was. And I started going in different style direction, I would say. And also as I started, I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself, especially with comic. With chapter 2 for my comic, then beginning of chapter 3, where I was at before I took a break, is that I was trying to create every panel on the page more artistic, and I was treating every panel as its own kind of painting, starting from 0 and getting to 100. But now I decided, okay, if I want to do it efficient, and if I actually want to make it serious and I want to make it to work, I need to do a different idea, a different concept. And I decided, okay, to draw with, think about the page overall, the scene overall, not each panel, and treat them all, kind of draw them all simultaneously at the same time, jumping between panels, between pages, as you see me do in my drawing videos. But also I started to create in background separately and whatnot, and that actually meant that I have to not push myself to draw super nice, because now in my head I wasn't seeing each panel as independent painting, and I allowed my style to drop a little bit, and detail quality and detail level to drop, to just allow myself keep continuing pages, to start continuing and finishing page after page after page, to kind of prove myself that I can do it and take this edge of pressure off me. So, and yeah, so this definitely derailed my style, and my style now started to go in another direction, and I allowed myself to drop the quality a little bit. And I'm saying dropping the quality doesn't mean that I start having like worse anatomy, worse perspective, worse color combinations. It more means like less details per se and less realism per se. Maybe that would be more logical to say, like drawing it more stylized rather than more realistic as I was pushing before. And it's actually changed the whole style of my comic. Before, with every panel I was pushing for this hyper realism, like a photography type of skin rendering. This is kind of what I envisioned for my comic. But with getting back 2 years later, I realized, no, my goal is actually keep doing comic. I need to make sure that I'm mentally able to do this comic, so it's not too much pressure, and also that it's physically possible to create pages more often than 4 pages per month, which is not fast enough. And yeah, I allowed myself to stylize, and my comic became stylized. What is interesting now is that as I'm doing it more often, and I'm drawing almost every day since when I got back to drawing my comic in the end of 2017, 2018. So I'm on like 2 years, 3 years I'm back. And as I started practicing, stuff started getting like this fluidity and speed of drawing started getting to me very fast, and I did a lot of progress in my style from there. And I definitely now can see the style change a little bit again. So from where I dropped the quality a little bit, now because I'm drawing faster and I have this better connection between my hands and my eyes and my brain, I'm able to do right strokes right away first try, and every time I start drawing something, it hits the mark immediately and I don't have to struggle. I know how to draw things right away. So now I can see my style becomes more and more, not that photorealistic, but it gets more detailed, and it has this kind of level of detail growing up and up, and I think like the quality of drawing really going up. However, I'm still keeping this level of stylization, and what it did to my style overall before, like 2.5 years ago, like before the break, I was very concerned with, first of all, I really like this style of drawing from colors, but I also was obsessed with the idea of hyper-realism, of drawing stuff super realistic, super photoreal, and I was really interested in that, which, as you can see, a little bit incompatible with creating comic with a reasonable speed. Now, because of this break, I started from stylized thing, and now as I'm adding detail level up, and I'm adding the level of detail, I'm adding definitely coming from like realistic style. I'm still within a stylized norm and stylized box. And before, I wouldn't allow myself to stay there. Before, I would think like the only realistic realistic style is the only style that ultimately means you're a good artist, your ability to hit that. But now I'm fine within containment of being stylized, and I know how to improve within stylized zone and make it look realistic within stylized zone. And I'm actually pretty happy with where my style now. I feel I kind of found my style in a way. It still can change, it still can improve. However, I kind of found the sweet spot for myself. So as you can see from this video, it's a little rumbly, but there's no way to get it structured. It's just a story of what happened in my thoughts about it. My skill did drop in a sense that I wouldn't draw as fast as efficient as before because the lack of practice definitely stood out. However, the way my eyes are and the way I have my knowledge about drawing didn't go away. It's just the efficiency of using this knowledge. This is what went down, and this is what I had to rebuild. But once I brought it back, the fun part is that my style kind of changed, and trajectory of the style and development of my art style and, you know, look overall changed. And now trajectory changed because also the space that was between me drawing before the break and me drawing after the break, I also changed my thoughts on art a little bit and my thoughts on what is the best art possible and what is not. And because of this, kind of my priority with art changed a little bit. Like, I was a changed person, and as you probably figure out, during this time I went through a lot of stuff, so I changed as a person and my values were different in regards to my art as well. And I think the most interesting part is the fact that it derailed my style, like it was a pivot. It's still not crazy, like it's not like two different people drew this, but I definitely can see the difference, and I can definitely, because I know what I was about, I definitely could see the difference in development trajectories. So yeah, that's the video for today. Chatty thought about my own process, so it was interesting to you guys and helpful. If you have stories that are similar to this, comment down below. I'm really interested to hear that, because I think it's just interesting to, you know, think how our style can change and how what breaks do to us as artists. And they don't take away your knowledge for sure, but they take away your ability to use this knowledge efficiently. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Thank you guys.